seeing the banner show up that says that we're recording this. So in the interest of appeasing folks from the GDPR countries, in case we're showing this to anybody from the UK or Europe, if they happen to see it, if you're not comfortable being recorded, now would be a good time to drop off this call. This isn't anything surreptitious or rebellious, but it is something that we may share with the public as we have this conversation about Project Future. Kick this off with a quick introduction to what we're doing here, and first by saying thank you and hello to the people here on the panel, and we'll give you a chance to say hello so that everybody knows who we are here. But what is Project Future? Project Future is a campaign with information about Project Online in the future, because I am a long in the tooth Project Online person. My own credentials include being part of the crew that helped put together the first technical credential for Microsoft Project and Project Online so many years ago. And so I am interested in supporting Project Online for the rest of its life, as long as anybody else wants to use it. And so we're rounding up some people here from Microsoft, people who have been employees and people who have been partners. And periodically, we're going to include the perspectives of customers that are using Microsoft Project Online. And specifically, we're interested in a couple of key pieces about what the future Project Online looks like in terms of where is it going, what good does it do me in the world of tomorrow, and how can I use Project Online with data in Azure and anywhere else that you want to use it. But again, people who want to keep using Project Online, there's no reason why you can't keep using it. So we're presenting 3 advanced questions and 3 moderated questions and 3 questions from the audience once per month to a panel of folks. And so I'm going to ask our panel here to give us a 15 or 20 seconds hello to let us know why you have an interest in Project Online. And we'll start with what I'm seeing videologically on my screen is Jeff at the top of the screen here. So you want to say hello, Jeff?
Hi, I'm Jeff Pikulik. I'm a project specialist with Microsoft. So I focus on all the work in project management tools. So basically anytime an individual task that you might have in Exchange or Teams becomes a group effort, Microsoft is fully vested in making sure that we make that easier for 2 things. One is for the user community to know what they need to work on and prioritize their individual work, but we're still committed, which is really the mothership of Project Online, is make sure that you can get those portfolio, program, and collective views of the work to ultimately, hopefully, prioritize the schedules and do demand management better than we have in the past. So happy to be on the call.
Great. Thanks. Hi, Jeff. And now I see he's taking himself off of video mutes. Hello there, Chris.
Is there such a thing as a video mute?
I made it up just now.
So, yep, I'm Chris Athey, and been involved in the project server and Project Online world since shortly it became Project Server. So 22 plus years, and talked with a lot of clients over those years, and there's some interesting changes in the client environment over the past few years with DevOps, etc. So however, I'm here to try and figure out how to retain kind of the discipline and the advanced science of Project Online in this new world and environment.
Excellent. Thank you. We're going here. And I see that we have a special talent just joined on here with Charles Elwood. Charles is an AI MVP, and his perspective on project management is going to be especially valuable as we start to integrate project and portfolio management technology with IoT and edge devices. So Charles, you just joined the call when everybody was given a 15 or a 20-second hello.
Oh, no, I'll just say hello. I got to drive, as I told you. I got to pick up some stuff for Mother's Day. So I'm running errands, but I did want to listen in on this because I wanted to hear and absorb the information and see how it could apply to some of the AI work that I've been digging into, and you know the stuff. So I'll probably just be listening in, and then I'll try to chime in if anything comes up.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for joining us, and appreciate your insight on any of this. All right, so the first question that we have here is actually a bit methodology, and it's tool oriented here. With Agile project management with iterative cycles are best handled how using Project Online? So who wants to take that first?
Go ahead, Chris. Start with the mythology piece, and I can do the methodology piece.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, yes,
Great.
yes, the mythology, yes.
Just the way we've done it in the past, I guess, is Agile iterative cycles are sprint based, and usually you have a standard team, so the resourcing is a little bit less important, etc. However, so the layout of the project is generally sprint wise. The difficulties with that, just because I'll jump in here, is really how do you plan your end date? You've got all the work broken down as items to be handled over those sprints, and they flow across them. But really measuring your progress in that cycle to meet the overall time frame, it's a little harder to figure out when are you done without dropping scope or pushing off entities. So unless you're doing that and giving a hard done date and pushing everything off to another wave. So that's my statement, is just do it in sprints, basically.
Okay. And then Jeff, anything to add?
Yeah, I think so there's certainly value in Project Online and what I'd call a more traditional governance model with regard to work delivery. Certainly if the practice of Agile delivery is chosen because you believe you're going to get a better work product, or you're going to get better, call it team cooperation, collaboration, etc. Start, and I always try to coach people, is start with delivery in mind, and then step back and think about methodology and governance as an absolute necessity versus something that needs to be designed from the beginning. So what I mean by that is if your only practice is Agile type delivery, and you're in a marketing function or a creative function or a software development function, and that's what's going to drive the best work product, by all means, adopt the best solution to go ahead and manage your creative ideas, your storyboards. To the extent you want to get into points and velocity and things like that, great. And certainly Microsoft DevOps is a beautiful tool for that. I think if we step back a step and recognize that there's very few environments in the business world that are solely tied to a creative process, there's obviously many other reasons why you need to do project management, tend to be the things that Chris brought up. You have a deadline, you have budgets. You often have other kinds of release issues that are going to be associated to the creative aspect of delivery, meaning that it's great that a software team, is prioritizing and collaborating around stories. But the truth of the matter is, whatever they produce does need to go through a validation and release cycle that meets some kind of real world business criterion, meaning that we tend to release product out in some kind of seasonality, or perhaps our budgets aren't all available to us for the life of the creative process. They actually do get called back because we're prioritizing those investments and those resources amongst other things going on. That's where Project Online really excels. And typically what I see my accounts doing is you create what we think of as a sister project in Project Online that sits alongside of the creative process, which would be your Agile delivery cycle, whether that's a sprint or an epic or whatever it might be. And you're basically doing some kind of periodic check-in, meaning that once some fiscal period, perhaps month or quarterly, you're actually rolling back what has been accomplished in the Agile world, and you're syncing that up with the schedule and the cost And Project Online can then bring together the portfolio view of resources and schedules and say, let's do another check-in here from a kind of a business lens. And you certainly still let the creative process of Agile delivery run forward, but you do a quick baselining, if you will, where you're bringing together all those different methodological elements and checking in with the organization. So those Project Online sister projects that reflect the Agile work are being commingled with other waterfall type projects, or maybe a phase gating type project tied to governance. And Project Online is very good at giving you a view of the business based on that perspective. So it's not an either or. And then those people that are familiar with the online or the desktop professional, we do have the capability to do simple sprints inside of those tools. And where that really comes into play, Chris brought it up, is resourcing in Agile. It's around the efficiency of a team formation process. When you get into project management, it's really about consumption of resources. And we do have the capability in Project Online to set up team-based consumption, meaning that you don't have to define team participation by role. You can define team participation by overall availability or hours or commitment of hours. And Project Online can then roll that up into one capacity plan. And anytime we're talking about Project Online, the ultimate payback is confidence in your resource planning. That's why people use Project Online. Schedule management, certainly crazy important, but you can do schedule management in a lot of ways. It's really connecting that schedule to the cost, to the resource consumption that is the payback for Project Online. And that's why we've all fell in love with it for a decade or so.
Yeah.
So that's a long answer, but Chris kind of teed it all up. But use Agile to drive that creative process, but you do need sort of a program management model to bring it back into the business context, and that's what Project Online is good at.
Great, thank you for sharing that. Part of my background as a PMP, I'm one of the PMPs from original days when it first came out. And so a long in the tooth waterfall person. So when Agile first came along, I apologize now to all the Agile purists that I am about to offend when I would make the joke that we all know Agile is just an excuse to not have schedules, right? Because you know what your due date is, that's at the end of the week for the working piece of software that you're going to produce from that. And as Chris and Jeff just pointed out, there are a lot of features and feature sets within the tool that will allow you to work with Agile. The tip that I would share, the best methodology, whether it's mythological or not these days, to use with it was something called the MSF, or the Microsoft Solutions Framework, and the SDM, the Solution Delivery Methodology. This approach to managing projects would have an overarching governance track that was project or engagement oriented of beginning, middle, and end. And then you would have the solution delivery techniques that you would use to produce the piece of working software. And so if one of those was an iterative type approach, that was Agile, and that could fit into, excuse me, essentially a repeated rapid fire waterfall type of approach. So Projects Online, Project Professional works brilliantly for Agile if you can understand Agile enough to break it out into those iterative cycles using a disciplined methodology that you follow routinely.
Even if you're using project or Agile sprints and DevOps or other products, pulling it all together to have the portfolio visibility of what's going on and how that time frame is changing, et cetera, is really important. And that's another area where Jeff pointed out Project Online shines.
Yeah.
So
yes, especially if you have a lot of teams working on different pieces and they interact with each other.
Exactly, because Agile is, to Jeff's point, it's for the smaller teams to keep them all involved and targeted on specific things. That works better for the smaller teams, but you still need those cross team dependencies as they produce the work product that are changing all the time, and having a higher level schedule that you can see the visibility of some of the key cross-team components and when they'll be available as things flow in the Agile world. That's kind of an important piece.
And so I think that kind of speaks to resources and resource usage and resource collaboration. So it's a good segue to the next question of what proportion of enterprise accounts that you work with wants to use Project Online to model resource usage and workloads on projects? So out of 10 accounts, how many of the 10 are actually using it to model the resource usage and workloads like we were talking about a moment ago could be done?
I'll jump
Go ahead,
in.
Jeff, you first.
Yeah, so I'm kind of fortunate. I get to work with my current role is 200 of the largest manufacturers in the U.S. So resource management is sort of core, kind of evolved up through MRP and all of that stuff. So it's a much higher percentage than historically that I've been involved in. So to be specific, I'd probably say 75%. In prior roles here, even with Microsoft over the last 8 years, worked with law firms and banks and other kinds of companies like that. So that percentage would have dropped probably below 50%. I think the number one goal is certainly to know investment and capacity. No one wants to step up and say we're going to deliver X, Y, or Z and not have the resources associated available to go ahead and make that commitment and pledge correct. So I think everyone has the goal of resource capacity planning. Resource usage is actually different. I'm not sure that resource usage is as important, meaning that when it comes to actually getting the work done, nobody really cares how the work got done. It's a matter of, can I make the capacity commitment to getting the larger packets of work completed? I'm still surprised that very often, specifically as more and more of our team leads are not formally trained in project management, how little knowledge there is between this number one simplest term in every one of our backgrounds, which is the difference between duration and effort. And the two are, strongly related, but they're not actually the same thing. So when you talk about workloads, I think a lot of businesses do need to better understand the principles behind Project Online. And one of the limiting factors of Project Online, which is being addressed in many of our new models within Microsoft as we go to some additional capabilities here in our newer platform, is the ability to do top-down capacity planning. So the fundamental limiting factor in Project Online is that you do need a schedule in order to do demand planning. In order to do demand planning, you have to have tasks. Tasks have to have effort. And very often, as I just said, duration is not effort. So by forcing people's hand to say we need a schedule for everything, to some extent, when we go after the goal of having a capacity plan, we really don't know the resource usage and the specific steps to complete the work. We have confidence that our, highly talented personnel in our companies can get the work done. So I think we're all stepping back now and recognizing, again, whether it's traditional waterfall or Agile or other approaches to work, that if we can do our aggregate forecasting with a confidence factor, when it gets to the appropriate phase to go ahead and do delivery, which would mean then you're doing resource assignment, which means you have resource usage information. I think we all have more confidence now we can figure that out, or we're willing to live with a little less certainty. Back to my original state, when you're in manufacturing, things operate on a better discrete set of units and you're able to do usage and workload. Other types of work are harder to measure that way. So what I walk away with is all companies want to do capacity planning fairly well. What they really need to do is recognize, are we going to be able to do the demand side of recognizing what are the sources of work that we're asking our resources to deliver on? And you can only do capacity planning as good as you can do demand planning. So if you're going to do demand planning from a tops down, that will set your tolerance for how much resource usage or workload fidelity you need to create. And again, that's where Project Online still is probably the best tool out there to bring together the three components of demand planning, resources, and schedules. What we all need to do is recognize we need to make it simpler to keep that that interaction at the right level of fidelity across the three different inputs. And I'll stop there.
Okay, that's a great answer.
One of the things people are losing when they don't do kind of the effort management and effort tracking, that you will, from a Project Online standpoint, is the ability to estimate new work that's not just a repeat of the old work. So it's the development of that maturity that understands how long it takes to do certain functions, and the kind of the waterfall approach, and the historical how long it takes in the waterfall approach is a totally different kind of depth of understanding of the project and planning for completion than is done today in the DevOps world, etc. So, and when you're taking on new work, like certain areas, space and defense, etc., they're doing new things all the time, then that history becomes very helpful. But for the lion's share of the community, that history isn't as valuable, and they can use the DevOps approach or a lighter planning approach to find the overall effort and duration.
One lost expertise in project management, and it's probably more program management, is the revisiting of estimates and knowing that our estimates were 70% correct, 90% correct. I don't care what percentage, but how well are we estimating? And the only way to do that is after the fact, to try to come back to the original plan. And obviously, even the concept of baselining and knowing where you actually kind of corrected your course along the way. That's certainly a lost art in program management. And to some extent, maybe that has been a factor, at least in recent years, of the turnover in employees, meaning that it's very rare we have such an intact work team. And that's generational, that's state of the economy and all those kinds of things. People just don't work as a natural formed work team for multiple projects in a row. And we really have fallen back on that. I don't have to get it right. I just have to have enough of a market basket of good workers and good ideas and good inspiration to get the work done based on my commitment. I don't really worry about where my error was, as long as the aggregate of all that worked itself out before I had to wrap up a deliverable and give it to somebody. So to your question, sort of, what percentage of my accounts use any kind of shared learnings on the back end to fix their estimating process? That has probably fallen to under 10 or 15% now, where I would have said 5 years ago, it would have been over 50. And I know for all of us with gray hair, that was a natural part of when we post-con projects, we looked at these stage-gated baselines and said, where did we have our slack and where were we off? And that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, the after-action reports.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I do feel like the old man on the lawn, shouting at the sky these days with a lot of things. I'm sorry, Chris, you said something.
Just to quickly tee off that, as an example of that, that's done kind of behind the scenes, the oil and gas industry. They did a lot of retaining knowledge through the risk management. So they'd capture standardized risks. They still do capture standardized risks, and they learn from that from project to project. They inherit those risks and they try to deal with them in planning, etc., and take that as a lessons learned. With the turnover, I think risk management in general is also taking a hit, especially as a passing forward of the lessons learned, as Jeff pointed out.
I don't disagree with you. I think all the skills that are in the 9 or 10 domains, depending upon which version of the PMBOK you pick up these days, are threatened. One of the fun questions is, what's your favorite feature of Project Online and why? And okay, yeah, what's your favorite feature in Project Online?
Well, I'm going to pass on Tony's mentioned favorite feature is kind of not what people would expect, the timesheet aspect.
Okay.
Just not because of the entry, etc., but it is part of a communication process with the team members, so that works well. It's also part of a data collection process into the project schedule, so you get the immediate feedback. So it supports that nice loop. And there are many ways to add on to that, different kinds of status, etc. If you're kind of a creative team that passes a little bit of more information around.
Okay.
So there's a nice realm for add-ins there as well for people like us to make this communication reinforcement more general and add things to communicate to it.
Well, to springboard off the resource conversation a moment ago, or the going back and revisiting the estimates, I like the idea of including the timesheets as one of your favorite tools, because that's one of the best places where you can revisit the estimates, because there's the option to figure out what's the remaining work or the remaining efforts, as Jeff was pointing out. So, Jeff, what's your favorite feature?
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of I can't pick one, so I'm gonna go high, medium, and low. So I'll start low. Interesting enough, I think everybody's least favorite feature in Project Online is tied to my favorite. So least favorite feature in Project Online, and I see the surveys all the time, is publish. People hate the check-in, check-out, publish function. And some of that is the status of the vintage of the software that was built in, from server to online and desktop, so that there's a practical aspect is we didn't have cloud-based computing like we have today. So everyone would be happy to know going forward in Project for Web, there will be simultaneous updates and things. There won't be a check-in and publish function. But the thing I love about the publish function is it actually creates the gray-green bars associated to the Project Online Gantt chart that shows you if people have checked or published edits to your schedule and you're the PM owner, it will show you where the impact of those changes are on your schedule and give you the governance and permission to accept or not accept those or modify them as appropriate. So one thing that we, whether you use the word Agile or you use collaboration or you use, design by committee, whatever phrase you'd like to use, sometimes just because people have input doesn't mean it's the best for the schedule and the work plan. So knowing what the impact is before everyone goes hit accept, I think was a great feature that was attached to the publish function. The other one that I will throw in from the top down is portfolio optimization, which takes a bit of data management to make it incredibly effective. But the starting with the pairwise comparison of what are the priorities of an organization and forcing an organization of directors and executives to agree on what is their priority for the work or the portfolio of work they're trying to actually fund and deliver really forces people to say, what are my priorities? And I think one of the limiting factors today, although we talk about a rolling forecast or we talk about being responsive in our design, I think it actually kicks down the can that people don't, it kicks the can down the road that people don't actually have to have a set of priorities. And the pairwise comparison that's built into Project Optimizer forces people to say, if C is more important than A, then B can't be more important than C in that same ordering of things. But it's crazy in our freeform logic that we've just let everything be the top priority. And if you visit me next month, I'll have a different answer for you. Meanwhile, you're trying to schedule and fund projects that have life cycles of 6 months, 9 months, 18 months down the road. and nobody ever revisits. Well, our priorities have changed, so therefore these projects can't all be the same priority they were before.
Yep.
My number one question I ask many of my accounts that are exploring how to get more out of Project Online, I always ask them, when was the last time you actually canceled a project? Just because a project is put in flight doesn't mean it has to be completed. If things have changed enough in your business, you might want to actually cancel a project. It never happens in the business world. If something is funded, we're going to go down to our tombstone before we ever see a project get canceled. So those are probably my big two, is the what's changed function within the Gantt, and the pairwise comparison within portfolio optimization.
Inches away from right now. Again, everybody, thank you very much for this. This was a lot of fun. Enjoy your weekend. Thanks.